to Inspirational Souls Live, episode number 9. Super excited tonight. We're going to be talking with Lindsay Lewis. Lindsay is a college math professor, artist, vegan activist, and volunteer, kind of a modern day Renaissance woman. She volunteers for the animal welfare organizations Red Bucket, Equine Rescue, and the Wildlife Care Center. We'll talk to her about that. Her animal rights activism includes donating her awesome artwork to raise money for various organizations. You can catch her this Saturday doing art live at the Circle V Fest. The Circle V Fest is a awesome vegan fest that's put on by Mercy for Animals in conjunction with Moby. She also participates in the animal vigils with the Save movement, and she's super excited, and I can't wait to hear how she did it this year. She is getting her family to join her in having a delicious, cruelty-free Thanksgiving vegan meal, and her Etsy shop will be opening up in early December. So let's welcome Lindsay to the show. Good evening.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. Were you able to share?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I just successfully shared it on my page, so hopefully my people can find it.
Yeah, awesome. And who do you have there?
This is Dexter. Dexter, say hi.
He's almost as famous as you are.
He's up there.
Yeah.
He's kind of a big deal.
That's awesome. Now he's kind of being like cool for right now. He's relaxed right now a little bit.
Just doesn't get like why whatever we're doing is not about him. So it's fine and it'll sink in.
We can interview him down the line.
Yeah, eventually he'll be ready for that part of his career.
Right on. So I really appreciate you. It's been tough. Everybody's got busy schedules. Thank you for making time. I know you got a lot going on.
Awesome.
Let's just kind of jump into kind of, I always ask people for their bio, where you were born, kind of how you got to where you're at now. And you have so many activities that we can talk about. We'll just kind of talk about them as they come up. So, tell us about your life so far.
Okay. Well, I've always lived in Orange County, California. So I was born here and always just loved art and then gravitated towards animals and helping animals. So it really shouldn't have been a surprise that those ended up connecting. Dexter just went and grabbed his ball. We're probably going to hear squeaking in the background, and I think I'm going to have to just not fight it.
That's totally cool.
Anyway, yeah, so I always did art and just like really gravitated to animals. Like in elementary school, I know me and my best friend, we were known as the bug ladies because we would like save the insects in the classroom and take them outside in a cup and like try to save them so that nobody would hurt them. And so all of that just was really natural. Can you hear that?
Yeah. He's good. If you want to grab the ball, you can grab the ball. That's totally fine. I think.
Oh, I think he got it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he understood.
Mm-hmm. Mommy's working. But yeah, so anyway, just having those two things be sort of my most, things that I'm most passionate about, and then having them connect now has been really cool. So yeah, it's just always been there.
So where did the art start? Like how young were you, and were you influenced? I've had artists, that were influenced by their parents. I had a guy that I had on that was, he was actually using it as therapy for his depression. So where did art develop in your life?
Well, all of it is, that's definitely all true that I'm hearing. This is going to drive me crazy. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So, for me, definitely this is like the two things that I do that I should not have been surprised by are teaching math and loving art because my mom does both of those. So even fighting the math thing for a good 20 years, I still went into it. So I'm definitely like the apple that doesn't fall far from the tree. So yeah, my mom's a math teacher as well and an artist, and although we do really different types of art, it's always been something that we've kind of shared together. So since I was really young, we would do that, and I would draw things, and she was really into like rubber stamping, and if I drew something that was like she really liked it, she'd have a stamp made of it or something. And
oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, so she was really nurturing of my artistic interest.
And how
And
early was that, can I ask, that you
how,
started? Like, how early did you
oh,
start?
I'm talking like before going to school, so like really young.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
That's the thing is both the animal interest and the art interest both arose just like so early on. Yeah. So I can tell Dexter's going to be like the most distracting creature in the world. So I'm going to let you like hold your breath for 1 second. I'm going to crate him. And I'm sorry I
Okay.
didn't think before.
No worries. No worries.
Actually, don't. Hold on.
So, like I mentioned, you can catch Lindsay this weekend at Circle V Fest in Los Angeles. She'll be doing live art. You can also catch her on Instagram at Linz and Dex11. It's on the screen. So check her art out there and follow her there.
Thank
Okay,
you. You're
back.
so okay, we're good now.
Cool, cool. So did your art start as were you when you started to actually when some like your mom was at a point where like wow like or you were like I like doing this and I have talent and I can do this, was it animals to begin with or was it something else?
I mean, I drew a lot of bunnies. Like, like a lot of bunnies. I had a bunny. I drew bunnies. I drew bunnies as ballerinas. I remember that was the first stamp that she had made, and they sold it in this like stamp store that my mom did art classes for. So I felt really special. But I think I've always gravitated towards drawing animals, but not as activism. So that kind of like happened recently, just by like or just organically, like I just started doing it. But I just always like to draw everything, like portraits. So I have a lot of like people. I used to draw the Dixie Chicks a lot in high school. Yeah, lots of art. I just anything. I just love drawing. And anytime, like speaking of high school, if I got like, say I got grounded, then it was actually wonderful because it was time that I got to stay home and work on art. So I always made the best of that. Uh-oh, I think you froze.
You can also catch her art at Lindsay Lee 1111. So here she's back.
Hi, what happened?
I don't know. I think it just, I don't know if it just, sometimes there's the connection if the internet skips or something like that. So you were saying you were, when you were in adult, in teenage timeout, you would look at that as an opportunity to do art.
Yeah. And it was so funny because I remember like always just being really awkward in high school and like just, I don't know, just I was like everyone else, but you always think you're the only awkward person. But my mom was like, I would draw things and I'd slip them into the front of my binder, into like the front sleeve where you could see them. And my mom's like, that's great. People will talk to you. People love artists. And it totally worked. Like, oh, did you draw that? And then it would open up like a dialogue with people. So it's always been a nice way to start conversations. So it's been.
So is that what you wanted to be growing up? I mean, because one of the things is you say you're a math, but you fought math, you were an artist, and you always had art. Is there something that you kind of secretly wanted to be growing up that you weren't, that you aren't right, at least right now?
I mean, now I just love what I'm doing. But when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be an actress or an artist or a fashion designer. I mean, I went to cosmetology school. So I've kind of dabbled everywhere just because of having an abundance of interests. So it was really hard to nail it down to one thing because I like a lot of things. So the great thing about teaching is that it does have that time where I have the in between the semesters. So I have that time to dedicate to other interests because I love my job. My teaching is amazing. But if you ask like myself at age 15, if I was going to be a teacher, like a math teacher, especially, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty interesting. So you fought it. Were you good at it and fought it, or were you just you were not good at it, but then you decided to like give into it? Because
I think I wasn't good at it because I wasn't applying myself. So I would like sit in my classes and draw instead of trying. So I wasn't motivated to try academically very much in the last like couple of years of high school. So I just did what I needed to do to like slip by. So I just wasn't really motivated by like math or any of the STEM sort of areas. So it was a real surprise that I'll get into that. And I think one of the things that really turned that around was how it kind of became part of my identity in my own mind that like, oh, I can't do math because I'm not smart. And I have this brother who's like a mutant genius. So I was like, okay, so that's for him. He's smart people. And then when I was just taking a general ed math class in college, I got my first 100% on a test and it felt really good. And then I thought, oh my gosh, like that doesn't have to be my narrative that I'm bad at math. Like I actually can be good at math as well. And it was like this sense of accomplishment. So it got addicting to be like, oh, something that I've told myself for years that I can't do, I actually can do.
Yeah, that's awesome that you say that, because I think that that's something that, I fought math. I was never a big math fan. And I think that if I went back and I decided to say I want to do that, or I'm going to at least try and be as open as possible, that I could probably do it, and that's great that you did that. So it's a great example.
Yeah, and you were talking about someone using art as a way to sort of help them with like their depression, and like definitely art has been very therapeutic for me that way. But math really was, because when I was doing math, I had to like really focus on it. Sometimes it's so hard that like when you're doing, like some integral calculus, you really can't also be thinking about your problems while you're doing that. So I don't know. I found it very therapeutic to focus on the math.
And so at college, is that where you made the switch from, to like, I'm going to be a math professor, or did you just decide that you were going to be a professor and math is what you fell into?
No, it was the other way around. I decided I was going to major in math. And then I thought maybe I would do something with like research or something like math is a good like bachelor get if you want to go into like, veterinary or med or something like that. So I thought about like medical research and things like that. And then I started tutoring people in math just to like pay my rent through college. And I found sort of a natural talent for explaining the math. And I think that was because I get how it feels not to get it. For so many years, I didn't get it. So I can explain it to someone else. And so then I just loved tutoring, and I would look forward to my tutoring sessions. And I thought, well, I'll just do this on a bigger scale. So now I have like, it depends on the class, but I have classes that are like, there's 180 students in there. And I'm like, this is yes.
Well, yeah, and I think people should check out your Instagram and your other social media, because you have some fun pictures with your students who actually, like the recent one you took with a bunch of students and their calculators, and to me it like blows my mind, because I mean mathematicians still use like a handheld calculator. They probably just really advanced, but it looks like you are really promoting fun, which a lot of people probably don't equate with math, but all your students look like they're having a blast, which is awesome.
So much fun. And right now I'm teaching statistics, which is extra fun because I get to like weasel my my vegan agenda in there and like seamlessly. But oh my gosh, we have so much fun like with that, the calculators. I just think math doesn't have to be something that's like this grueling task. It can be really interesting, and like you get this sense of accomplishment, and I really just found this like satisfaction when I got an answer right or something. So I'm hoping to help my students experience that feeling, because it just, for me personally, it did wonders for my self-worth. So it's not even just about the mathematical content. I want to see my students grow in what they think they can do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any crossover to your art with math?
My students say I draw really good circles. Every time I have this one class, and every day I draw a circle to like represent a set, like a circle, like I'm just trying to draw a set.
Okay.
And they're just like amused at how nice the circle is, and it's become a joke. And I'm like, okay, this is fun. But like when you're teaching calculus and you need to draw, like 3-dimensional figure or like a rotating solid around an axis, I love drawing. Like sometimes they look like the top of a bagel or something, and I love drawing that.
Yeah.
Also, just there's people think math and art are so like opposite on the spectrum, but they're so connected. Like if you think about drawing like a face that's aesthetically pleasing, there's that golden ratio that
Yeah.
helps it make it more easy to like look at, I guess. Easier on the eyes is the word I'm
Yeah.
thinking of. But there's just such a connection between math and art, math and music, and so they're really not as polar opposites as people think. And
Are you a
so,
big music fan too?
yeah.
So are you just an overall curious person? Are there any other passions that you have hidden in there? We're gonna move into the veganism thing in just a minute. But are there any other passions that you have besides, art, math, all the volunteering, the animals?
My brother just said I was a Renaissance girl growing up because I like just like a little bit of everything. So yeah, it's always been really hard. Like I always just feel like I'm a little good at a lot of things, and it actually gives a lot of rise to opportunity to meet a lot of different types of people. So I felt really lucky in that. But yeah, my mom's a fantastic cook. My brother's a fantastic cook. So sometimes I get really into like that mode. But really, I think what it is a general passion for creating. Um,
Good.
Whether that's creating, an environment that's conducive to student growth or creating a piece of art that starts a conversation about something important. Like as long as I'm creating, I think I feel like I'm being authentic to like who I am.
And so with that, you've melded the passions together now. You're vegan, obviously, and when did you start exploring veganism, and what was your journey with veganism like?
Okay, so
Veganism, I guess.
yeah, it was like actually more like 20 years ago when I became vegetarian. Because I remember that I would start asking my parents to cook my food more. Like if they were making, like chicken or fish, I'd say, I really want you to overcook it. Can you like really burn it? And I realized I wanted to distance myself from what the food actually was. So when I kept asking them to just like overcook my food, I don't want to recognize what it is. And then I remember sitting at the dinner table and looking at my brother across from me and my dog over on this different dog, but over on the floor, and thinking like, I wouldn't eat them. So why am I eating this animal? And like ethics aside, it just kind of grossed me out. So I was like, I don't want to eat a rotting body. So I stopped eating meat. And then that went on for like almost 15 years before I picked up Alicia Silverstone's book called The Kind Life Diet. And I picked up Alicia Silverstone's book because she was in Clueless. And like back in high school, that was, I mean, I'll still now, it's like my favorite movie ever. So she's kind of my spirit animal. So I read her book, and I remember just like being in my bed sobbing reading it when I learned about the dairy industry. Like I thought I was being so great not eating meat, but I was contributing to the exact same industry by eating dairy. So then I had my first round of let's try to be vegan, and tried to cut cheese. And cheese was my hardest thing. Like I loved Parmesan so much. I remember really good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about what it is. So I tried veganism off and on for several months at a time, and then 6 years ago, I finally just said like I can't be putting this like suffering into my body, because I was suffering. I was feeling very anxious, and I would get bouts of depression, and I realized that like I'm feeding my body other creatures suffering, and so I don't want to put that in me, and also I don't want that to be like something that I contribute to in the world. So I just cold turkey, if you will, stop. Speaking of turkey, we're gonna talk about Thanksgiving because I'm so excited.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I just like it. It felt really good to not be contributing to that with my dollar vote.
Yeah.
So and yeah, and not putting it in my body, I felt cleaner and more like aligned with myself. It's hard to explain, but I just felt really clean and natural, that I didn't have anything gross in my body.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you, and I think it's also to the mindset of just the animal. You're so connected to animals, you can remove the idea of the possible possibly guilt associated with that once you know it. You know what I'm saying? Once you know what goes on. So, was once you went vegan, Did you struggle with anything? Because one of the things you have the opportunity to do now is kind of maybe if somebody's considering veganism or if somebody's new to veganism, you know, what kind of struggles, if you had any, once you made the switch? You know, you said dairy was kind of one of the big things. You know, how did you cure the dairy need?
You know what I did is I figured that first for that, like my one struggle at first was giving up dairy. Once that was done, it was done though. So you just have to get through it. Then there was like the social hurdles. But as far as the dairy goes, I realized that when I was craving Parmesan, for example, I wanted something savory. So I found alternative savory items. Like it was bad, but I would literally just go, okay, then I'm going to put some like Himalayan salt on my pasta. And then it kind of gave it that savory thing that I was looking for. So I just kind of tried to identify if I'm craving this food, what am I really looking for? And that really helped. And then I would just start eating, like, for me, I don't do a lot of like replacement meats or replacement cheese. So
Okay.
I like to just omit them from the recipe. So I took a bunch of recipes and just like, if it was a pasta with chicken on it, obviously I hadn't been putting chicken on it forever, but pastas where we had like different Parmesan or ricotta. So I started by just omitting that and then focusing on the flavor of the herbs. Like I could taste the basil more when the Parmesan wasn't in there. And I could eat more of the good stuff with like a lighter feeling than that heavy feeling if I ate the cheese. So I just kind of try to pay a little more attention instead of just like eating.
Well, that's awesome because, you know, I think one of the things, you know, I think you've been on the site inspirationalsouls.com multiple times. You've been on there as an artist spotlight, and also we highlighted your veganism. But I think one of the things that I try to do with the vegan spotlights is give anybody who stumbles upon them, or friends who read them, or families who read them, different takes on how people